Hey, hey, hey. Afternoon. Bill Watkins, co-founder of the Lions Pride. Today, looking for Mark Wilcox to join me here in a few seconds. Mark is one of the contributors here at the Lions Pride. He's a content writer, but one of his ninja skills is storytelling. This is our this is our brand playbook. This is something that you should either have or work towards. And actually, there's Mark. So, Mark, come on in here and join our broadcast. I was just bragging on you. I was just bragging on you, Mark.
Glad to
So,
hear.
Mark, uh, as I said a few seconds ago, so that Mark catches up. Mark is one of the significant contributors, and he's a contributor to our brand playbook. Brand playbook is what guides our marketing, and marketing is what brings you pre-qualified, predisposed, and pre-motivated prospects to your company to become customers. Mark, I'll let him introduce himself in just a second, but Mark is one of the key people that helps us execute on that. He's an outstanding content writer, and he's a ninja level, as I said, storyteller. And stories, as we're going to talk about today, your stories, your company stories, and your personal stories are absolutely key to your brand. So, Mark, thank you for taking time out of your busy day. I'm going to really deeply introduce you to everybody at the end of this broadcast so that they can connect with you, because they're going to want to connect with you after you share with them your expertise and experience. But briefly, talk to us real quickly about Mark Wilcox.
Well, I am a kid juggler first and foremost and storyteller. I have 5 kids. I come from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. That was where I was born and raised, so I got a unique upbringing in the mountains. And nowadays, I live in Smithfield, Utah. Just moved here last December. And I help people connect to their ideal clients through the power and personality of words.
The power and personality of words, and you connect people to their either current or future clients. So, Mark, one of the things that we've put a lot of energy into is the brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole brand. And I think everybody out there, business owners, business leaders, and entrepreneurs, they understand the intellectual concept of brand. But could you maybe give us a really quick overview from your experience on when you talk to your clients, people like us, companies like us, what do you tell them a brand is?
Well, a brand is really the way you talk about yourself, the way you present yourself, the way you tell stories about yourself. That's all the brand. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at some of the biggest companies in the world that you think of, I mean, if you think shoes, you're likely to think Nike. You think athletic apparel, same thing. They've brought a certain storytelling finesse into their marketing that says, we are shoes, we are athletic apparel, and if you're not doing it with us, you're not just doing it. Just do it. And that's what you think of. And that's storytelling in 3 words that Nike does so amazingly well. Mm-hmm. And they own that segment so well because they have told the right story. They have developed that brand of, if you are a high achieving athlete, you come to us for your apparel needs.
Right.
And that's really what a brand is all about, is just getting into the heads of the people that you want to be wearing your brand, essentially. And for a clothing company, that's one thing. And for the Lions Pride, that's another thing. But yeah, you're just getting into the heads of the people that you're going to be dealing with to best interact with them.
So, Mark, one of the things that you have guided us towards, you were adamant about it when we started to work together a few years ago, but you've guided us along the way to extracting stories. In other words, you said the way people connect with you is through your stories. Mm-hmm. And so you actually, when we first connected, you were working for publications, and one of your skills was interviewing people to get their stories. You've actually done that with me and Robert. Yeah. We even do it on a weekly basis where you say, tell me a story about, and then we ramble on and tell you tons of stories. You take tons of notes, and out of that comes either marketing material or marketing content or something like that. So that's what we do. That's what you've done with us. But why is that? Why are stories so important? Why do you think they're so important?
Well, if what you do is the bones, the stories are the connective tissue.
Oh, nice. I like that.
It just came to me just now.
Brilliant.
That's really what it is all about. Stories are the connective tissue. That's what gets you into the hearts of the people that you'll do business with.
Okay.
Because you might be able to get into their mind through a lot of clever marketing, but you're not going to get into their heart unless you connect with them on a personal level. And if you look back at history, you see that the storytellers used to be the ones that had all the power. They were the village elders, you know, the chiefs. These were the people that orally told the traditions, the stories, and they, unsurprisingly, had all the power. You know, nothing has changed. It just looks different today. The companies with power are the ones that tell their stories correctly. Mm-hmm. I have a client who I spent probably 30 to 45 minutes talking to him. And I didn't really know what he was even doing at that point. This was
you mean in his business? In his business, yeah. you talked to him and you had no idea, like, really what he was doing?
Yeah, so he gets distracted on all these other stories, all these tangents of what he's capable of doing with this product that he developed. So I kind of knew what the product was, but I wasn't really connecting with him. And then probably 45 minutes in, he told me how he developed that product. He had been on crutches for a long time. And while he was on crutches, he was out in his garage and he could not move through his garage because of all the stuff, his workshop, where he puts these things together, these shelving units is what he has.
Sure.
But back then it wasn't that way, of course. Just had a messy garage. He also owns a bike shop. And as he's doing this, he goes, there's got to be a way to get all this crap off the floor so I can move around in here, even if I have crutches. And he told me that, and suddenly the light came on. Like, I can connect with you. I can feel your pain. I have had similar experiences to that. And who isn't going to have some sort of connective tissue to that exact story where you're moving around and you're just frustrated by all the stuff that's around you? So he spent the next 8 years of his life developing this product that he's now manufacturing. That story, that one connective bit, I didn't get until I've been talking to him for 45 minutes. And that's exactly what you need to shoot to get right away every time and tell people, because you're going to connect a lot faster and a lot clearer.
So it's the story around the Thanksgiving dinner table that connects everybody together as a family. It's the story of the fishing trip last week over a couple of beers at Dornan's, a local bar here in town, where you and I would connect and share. What you're saying is that's not only relevant on a personal level, but you're saying that those stories are relevant on a business level.
Oh, of course. Another example, I was called to a breakfast meeting a few weeks ago, And this was someone that has told me about some of his projects. He's never been super good at communicating what his projects are and what they involve. But he called me to this breakfast and said, there's going to be 3 other guys there. I want you to come meet these guys. He did not tell me the story effectively of what he was even doing. He just said I ought to be there. So I showed up just kind of in the dark. I ended up meeting the other guys before he showed up because he had to travel. And we're just sitting there talking and getting to know each other. And then once we sat down for breakfast finally, they started telling me all these things that were not really connecting with me because I didn't even know that bare bones, what am I in this meeting for?
Okay.
And over the course of this breakfast, about an hour, we're talking and discussing these things. About 45 minutes in, I finally realized what the meeting was about.
Mm-hmm.
And over the next few minutes, I was able to kind of piece together a coherent story that brought it all together.
Okay.
But it literally took them an hour to tell me what a coherent storyteller would have done in 2 sentences.
Okay, so first I want to go there with you. I want you in a minute or two, I want you to explain to our viewers how they can be that ninja level storyteller and connect people with their brand instantaneously. But first, when I said you were adamant about us telling our stories, I believe you felt a little pushback from both Robert and me because we're not comfortable talking about ourselves. We did not connect the value of our own personal stories with our brand. We thought we were irrelevant. We thought no one wants to hear about Bill's stories, and Robert didn't think anybody wanted to hear about Robert's stories. We're those guys who love to hear other people's stories, but we're not guys talking about ourselves. I think you experienced that. How did you eventually get us to feel more free about seeing the business value in our own personal? You've heard so many of our stories, I'm embarrassed to even think how much you know about my life. But I'm sorry for that. But how did you convince us? How are you going to convince the viewers that their stories are relevant to their business?
Well, here's the thing that I think most people have probably heard, that you don't do business with businesses, you do business with people.
Okay.
And like you connect with people sitting at Dornan's in front of the Tetons, you're going to, telling stories, you'll be able to connect with people by telling your own story.
Okay.
And hearing their story. However, there is a little bit of caveat to that, in which you connect better to people when telling your own story than when listening to someone else's. But yes, you can, when you're telling a story, you can get that connection going with your audience, in just that they can drop into your shoes. But it's really when you drop into your audience's shoes that the real magic happens. And so
it's okay. Keep going. I got a question, but I want to hear it.
Okay, so you really want to tell stories where you can viscerally connect to what your audience might experience.
So this is what I can see now. Your behind the scenes magic here, Mark, that you've done with us. What you did here in our brand playbook, in the chapter, I think it's chapter 2. It's called All About Mike. Mike, our perfect customer, his interest and his characteristics. Is in that chapter, you put a lot of stories, a lot of facts about Mike, so that I can see what you were doing, so that you would get me and Robert to tell relevant stories to Mike.
Oh, yeah.
We weren't rambling on about some story where Mike went, what the heck are they talking about? I don't know what they're talking about. You wanted us to tell stories where he would hear things and go, you know what? That sounds like me.
Exactly. And it's all about, telling the story that puts them in your shoes or vice versa right away. That connective tissue, as I've called it before.
Okay.
Now, going back to the restaurant example where I was at breakfast, those people heard me spew back their story to them, and their immediate question was, "You want on board?" I told them what their story should sound like.
Right.
They suddenly saw the power of storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted me. So my business is storytelling, and just by telling my story, they wanted me to drop in. I was instantly converted from this guy that was at a meeting to someone they needed to work with.
Yay! Well, probably everybody's going to want that afterward, and your phone's going to melt because they're all calling you. But before that, what I want you to do is walk us through maybe a 2-step process or a 3-step. Once we get over the ego, like most of us watching are not people inclined to ramble on about ourselves. We're humble business owners. We're trying our best. We're busy guys and gals, and we're just not people that show up at the party and spend all night talking about ourselves. But let's say we get over that. Let's say we get the business value. We get you. We understand intellectually that we just got to get over our little ego. Nobody's seeing us as an egomaniac. They're actually inviting us to tell our stories because they feel value in maybe the solution that's coming. So let's say we accept that. What is the way, 1, 2, or 3 quick steps that our viewers can actually get started in amplifying their brand by including storytelling?
Okay, first of all, I want you to think about what it is you tell your best friends about your business.
Okay.
Is it, what made you start it? What the reason that's behind it? I want you to find what you're talking about your friends or with your friends, the reason you're doing what you're doing. And then once you have that, that's going to be a pretty good guidance stone.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You're going to go, okay, well, if I connect to my friends, I can connect to my clients with the same kind of story.
Okay.
And that's an absolute guidance stone. You want to be able to talk with your clients as if you've always known them.
Yeah. So they feel maybe like your friend.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they don't want to tell that story. They want to tell, oh, hey, I do this. And when you talk about what you do, that's so off base. No one, like, for instance, going back to the guy with the bike shop. I didn't tell him that I was a writer. I told him that I am a storyteller who connects people with their ideal clients through the power and personality of words. That's my one-line storytelling introduction of what I do. Mm-hmm. He was so impressed by that just over the phone that when I met him in person, he was already thinking about how he could use me. Because I didn't tell him what I do, I told him a story, a miniature story.
Yep.
And that got him interested. And he's like, okay, now I want to know more. He delved beyond the story I told and wanted more story. Because I was talking to him as someone else, as a friend might talk to him, rather than someone just trying to dredge up business.
Exactly. So I sell widgets, and this is what my widget does, and you should buy it. It's different than that. This is why I have this widget, because this story, and then the other person goes, wow, yeah, I get that. Okay, so number 1, get over your ego. Your stories are relevant. The right kind of stories.
Yeah. And then
means you have to know your customer. Number 2, you tell your stories, or you craft your stories in a way that you would to a friend.
Yeah. And then I would say another thing to do is to pick a super relevant story, one
Okay.
that is kind of your go-to story. For my guy in the bike garage, it was that he couldn't move around on crutches. That's relevant. It tells why you need this. It solves a pain point of having too much stuff, and
Got
it
it.
organizes the stuff in your life.
Okay.
For the clients at breakfast, they actually had this super interesting story. This is going to be for the Boy Scout Jamboree. These clients, they're working on getting tents set up at highly trafficked locations that provide rest and electrolyte fluid for scouts that get heat exhaustion. There's some ridiculous percentage of scouts there that get heat exhaustion. In fact,
Sure.
one of these guys, his son had to go in an ice bath for 5 hours. And that
So it was meaningful to him.
is meaningful and relevant. All of a sudden you go, okay, if it can happen to your son at Scout Jamboree, it can happen to mine. And I told them to tell that story. Say, scouts walk this many miles at Scout Jamboree. They get hot, they get heat exhaustion, and there's no place for them to rest along all these trails where they can get shade and electrolytes that will keep them from having heat exhaustion. So I just told you the story that took me about an hour to extract from them
Okay.
of directed work. And so lead with that. Don't put that on a back burner somewhere. Get that connection going immediately, and there's going to be a lot more people that want to hear what you have to say.
Let's talk about Mark. Okay, so you gotten over yourself, your ego problem. You're beyond Bill never wanting to talk about himself. So you're amenable to it.
Well, I think you were farther along on that scale than you think you were when we started.
Okay.
Maybe Robert was more behind the curve.
I still hear my father telling you don't need to talk about it. Just go do your job. But you've now sat down and you've thought through a few stories that you would tell friends, especially when it comes to talking about your business or your product or something like that. And you've crafted them in a way that is relevant. So you're imagining your ideal customer across the table from you, and you're telling them now you're leading with a story. You're not leading with the features and benefits of your product or your service or something like that. I want to talk just for a second so one way to tell your story is face to face, but not all of us have businesses where we can be face to face, across the table, a desk with a potential client. How else, Mark, can you tell this story that you now want to lead with?
Well, you can simulate it in any space. You can put it on your homepage. Those synopsises of those stories that I gathered and am now coaching my clients to tell, those can be easily put on a homepage in a couple sentences or on About Us page. Okay. They can be in your marketing materials on a pamphlet, whatever you use to get your name out there, however you use to communicate to your client. If there are words there, you can tell a story. And too many people do the dry, I am this person and this is what I do, when they're telling about themselves. About Us is really a fantastic place to showcase a story. Mm-hmm. And a lot of startups actually do this well, because they had this fantastic idea that hit them in the head when they had a pain that they experienced. And so they tell the story of how they overcame that pain by developing X product. Mm-hmm. And, maybe there are some corporations that do really well with it too. But for the most part, startups get that. The personality has to be out leading in front. And corporations tend to kind of drop off and forget that because they have a name for themselves.
Okay. would you say one of the things that we started doing at your suggestion was we just used our phone. We would just hold our phone up. You said it can be informal. Nobody wants to feel like they're talking to a corporation. They want to talk to you. And so we would just hold our phone up and tell a quick 2 or 3 minutes relevant story. Is that a way to potentially get started?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that. You can definitely get on Facebook to do a video post along those lines, or to do a Facebook Live along the lines of what we're doing here. I mean, this is, right now you're telling a story by having me on here. And it sounds like you had how was that Scout Jamboree?
Yeah, EJ is confirming that he was there. Did you have a heat exhaustion, EJ? Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
So I think what we've talked about is that, as part of running your business and developing great marketing, you have to sit down and extract your relevant stories. The guy who was on crutches and needed to get around his garage. Today I was talking, I know Dave Powers from Power Endurance Sports. Dave has a whole portfolio of high-end outdoor equipment, bikes and rowers and all sorts of stuff that are sold through dealers across America. And he's getting great traction, but he gets great traction because Dave connects the reason he imports high-end outdoor equipment and stuff like that with his desire to improve people's health, get them outdoors. He thinks it's better physically and mentally, emotionally. And Dave tells a great story about why that's meaningful to him. And the way that he got eventually to that story was I remember when he first joined the Pride, we would say, "Hey, Dave, what do you do in your business?" "I import, high-end outdoor equipment." And then all we did was we kept saying, "Why? Why, Dave?" "Well, because, it helps people with health." "Why, Dave?" "Well, health is important." "Why, Dave?" And eventually Dave got to the heart of the story that was at the heart of his drive to, be a premier provider of these equipment lines to his dealers and distributors across America.
Well, that
so
why
I think
is powerful. Why is what you lead with.
Why is what you lead with.
Has a great TED Talk. I believe it's a TED Talk on getting why.
Start with why. And if you go to YouTube and Google Simon Sinek, that's a great one. Start with why. You'll get his 18-minute TED Talk, which will guide you towards the heart of your stories.
Yeah, and he's a phenomenal storyteller.
He is himself.
He says, and you're just wrapped. And he knows why he's speaking. And that's something that any good storyteller will do, is get across the why you and I should connect right away.
Okay. And so I want to wrap up, Mark, by diving deeper into how people can connect with you. But I want to conclude here. Mark has been so instrumental in extracting and utilizing our stories and allowing us to make greater impact in our marketing, connect deeper, faster, and better with the prospects out there, maybe like you, are going, "Who is that Watkins guy, and why is he relevant to my life? Why am I spending time listening to him and Mark today?" And it's through our stories that Mark has us tell that would either confirm or deny that you should dive deeper with us. But Mark, would you agree, and I think you will, that you have to be prepared now? Marketing brings you that prospect. You tell that story, but you have to be prepared for them to go, "I like that. What's next?" You got to be ready. You can't just be the storyteller. There has to be a call to action. There has to be something that engages them and hooks them into your business, as opposed to just being the big storyteller at the dinner table.
Yes. Absolutely. The call to action is part of every piece of content I produce, regardless of client. If you don't have something calling them to action, oh, that was nice,
Right.
great story.
Thanks a
Moving
lot,
on,
Bill. See you
next
later.
phenomenal thing on the internet.
Right.
If you don't prompt them and say, here's what you can do now,
Right.
and they'll figure out what to do by themselves. So once you hook them with the story, you can lead them.
Yeah, you gotta be ready to shift from marketing to sales. Now, sales is where you sign somebody up and you get a commitment out of them, and that's probably how you generate revenue in your business. Maybe the call to action isn't to generate sales at the moment. Maybe it's to take a free sample, or to I know carpet cleaners say, hey, we'll come and clean 2 rooms, and your marketing brought you to the phone call where the client said, yes, I want you to come, but you had to be ready with that offer. So anyway, you just need to do something. Hey, Mark, we'll wrap up. These are busy people watching our live cast. I know there's people out there who want to connect with you, and I'm going to connect with them through the comments. But if they want to right now, talk more detail about what you can do for them and how they best can connect with you and benefit from what you do.
Well, I have a variety of products. A less powerful storyteller might say they're a blogger in my shoes, but that's only a part of what I do. So blogging, marketing materials, anything where you need a clear, concise, powerful story, I can help tell that. Just the other day, I ran into a friend on a trail up in Grand Teton National Park, and I started talking to him about exactly what it is I do. And I used my 2-sentence story to tell him what I was doing now. And he said, oh, how can I use that? And I said, well, why don't you send me something that you've written, to an email or something, a power letter, whatever, that you send out to help drum up clients, and I'll take a look at it. And he sent me that, and I revised it for him. And he goes, okay, I see what you're talking about.
Good.
So basically anywhere that you need to tell a story.
Okay. Sorry for the noise. Donna's remodeling the kitchen down below my office here. So
almost sounded like dogs barking.
Yeah, the house isn't falling in. Mark, people are going to be able to connect with Facebook link. But how can they? How will they contact your website, or how will they contact you by email?
I actually do all of mine through word of mouth marketing. I stay more than busy enough through word of mouth. So
Woo-hoo!
I just have a direct email, wilcox.mark@gmail.com. That's wilcox.mark@gmail.com. You can also reach me on my cell phone, 307-690-5360.
All right, all you ninja business owners, business leaders out there, it's time to take your branding and your marketing to another level. Utilize a guy like this. Utilize the tips and tricks we shared today. And if you like this, I have 2 modest proposals for you. 1, follow me on Facebook so that you get notice of broadcasts like this. We're doing these twice weekly, and we are finding experts like Mark in branding and in A-player hiring and talent acquisition. And we've had some phenomenal guests. They're going to share it with you in 15 to 30 minutes. You'll be able to finish the broadcast and put what they share to work. This is not just giving you knowledge. This is giving you knowledge and implementation. And the second thing is, if you really like this, then go to thelionspride.com. One word, upper left-hand menu option says Get Started. Get started with us. You have people like Mark working for you almost 24/7, although he's got 5 kids, so he's out juggling them. But most of the time, he's working on your behalf. You get a guy like that. You get 12 to 15 other ninja-level contributors. You get me and Robert. You get our whole community of lions and lionesses who are here to encourage you, learn from you, contribute to you, support you, and hold you accountable to your promises. It's different in here. You're out there. It's different in here. Join the Lions Pride because it's actually better. So thanks a lot for watching. Next week, I don't know what we have on the schedule, but I promise you it'll be a good one. And Mark, I want to thank you for your time, and I want to encourage our viewers to connect with this guy. He's awesome. Thanks a lot. Have a great, let's see, it's Friday, right? So have a great Friday and have a great weekend.
All right, thanks.